Hello, welcome to PODnas. This is a sports show with some Southern and Cajun flair. I'm Daniel Hawks. That's Jared Roser over there. Today, we've got a special episode coming to you because there was a lot of noise about Garrett Nussmeier's knee. And also the fact that after a year, I can finally say Nussmeier's name fully. Yeah. But let's get into the knee stuff as well. So reports came out earlier this week.
Wednesday afternoon.
That something had happened to Garrett Nussmeier's knee. A lot of people were saying that it was an ACL tear, that there was just a major injury that was happening. It was going up on other boards of other colleges. You know, South Carolina, Clemson were chomping at the bit to say that Garrett Nussmeier is not going to be able to lead this LSU team going into the 2025 season. So let's kind of talk about it. Let's talk about what actually happened. Let's talk about what LSU's saying, what kind of some of your sources are saying, Jared, and kind of maybe get to the middle and get into some clarity about what is going on with this Garrett Nussmeier situation.
Yeah, I like how you say a special episode, like it feels like an after-school special.
It is. It's going to be quick. We're going to be in and out. It's going to be like a elementary school recess. 20 minutes, bang, bang.
We're obviously going to get into some more detailed season preview stuff next week, but this is, a huge story to monitor for this LSU football team, this LSU football season. And so we felt like it was important to get something out there sooner than later. It's been a weird week. You mentioned Wednesday, a lot of the buzz, which is probably as a word underselling it. It was like a firestorm on social media for a stretch there on Wednesday afternoon. Proposing that it was an ACL injury that had knocked Garrett out of practice during the course of practice on Wednesday. Quickly, a few reporters cited LSU sources saying he's fine. Bruce Feldman, a national reporter who's pretty tapped in down here, said his LSU source said, these people are unreal. He's fine. And then another kind of point that re-sparked some of the online chatter was late Thursday night. LSU changed up its availability for Friday. They were supposed to have a Friday practice with some media viewing opportunity, and then offensive coordinator Joe Sloan speaking after. And late Thursday night, they made it a private, closed practice without the media viewing. And so immediately then speculation starts to respiral. Yeah. But that
real quick, that doesn't seem like the best move to quell fears. But I understand it. I understand the team doing it, but it doesn't. They had to have known that ish was going to go up. As soon as they did that.
And we'll kind of get to some of like my feelings about where Nuss actually is with this, but ultimately he was not a full participant in practice on Friday. He did throw on the side some. And so on the heels of everything Wednesday, I think you don't want that level of, video and spotlight and all the things on him as he's trying to kind of get back and test out where he is right now. I was honestly a little bit surprised that he was even back in that capacity yet, and that the expectation is that he'll be back in a greater capacity on Saturday. I think all of that is really encouraging news here in the first 48 hours of all this. But after practice, before Joe Sloan's press conference, Brian Kelly came out for about 3 minutes and talked to media and reiterated, look, he's fine. It's patellar tendonitis. It's kind of a chronic thing dating back to a previous injury a couple years ago. And it's something they can manage and work through. That he put it on a scale of 1 to 10. He said it's like a 1.5 and really kind of calmed down some of the concerns. I'm somewhere in between. You have to, certainly I think we're not seeing an ACL. What I was told even prior to what the media was told today was that it wasn't an ACL. It sounded more concerning to me on Thursday than what we were told on Friday. And obviously Brian Kelly has every reason and incentive and whatnot to try to manage some of the concern and try and give Garrett a chance to kind of work through what he's working through, whatever the extent of it may be. I'm not immediately this is fine, he'll be back Saturday, and it'll just be a 1 or 2 day blip on the radar. We'll see how he kind of works through some of this, but it is super encouraging that he's back in some capacity and that they're talking about him potentially being back closer to full go on Saturday. We're still 3 weeks away from that opener against Clemson, and I think it's worth monitoring here moving forward. But I mean, there's a lot of reason why anything surrounding Garrett Nussmeier is a huge scare, because he's a huge part of what this team hopes to be this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's talk about that a little bit more. A Nussmeier injury would be devastating for the Tigers. Like that's just devastating. Anytime anyone suffers a season-ending injury, it's not really ever great. But particularly in this LSU 2025 football season, if that were to happen, how much do you think that derails what this team kind of wants to do? Which is, and be in the college football playoffs and be vying for a national championship, because that's the bar. That's the bar. Like, let's be completely honest. That's what LSU fans want. That's what I think this team expects to have that kind of year this year.
So much of the talk is that, and I think LSU wants to compete for national championships every year. And you saw
absolutely
this offseason, the level of investment into the transfer portal, I think, kind of showcased that they thought that this team had a chance to be that level, and they wanted to kind of fill those final pieces and be a playoff team. And so there are, a lot of eggs into the basket of this team of anticipated being one of those 12 teams that's still competing into January and whatnot. And a huge piece of that is Garrett Nussmeier deciding to come back for another season, have this opportunity as a second-year starter to build on everything that he learned a year ago, where he's the SEC's leading returning passer from what he was able to do last year. And if you can clean up some of the miscues of a first-year starter from last year and take another step forward, there are a lot of reasons why people look at him among the top tier of Heisman candidates this year. And when you lose anyone, you don't want anyone to get hurt, obviously, but when you're talking about a quarterback that has a chance to be, as good as any quarterback in the country, that is a huge game changer for the overall potential of this team. A team that has had trouble to some degree in terms of the quarterback recruiting. They missed on a guy last year, obviously, we've talked about before, in Bryce Underwood. They've had some veterans transfer. Ricky Collins is up at Syracuse now and expected to start the season. AJ Swan is at Appalachian State now, expected to start for them this season. And so there's a little bit lighter of a quarterback room behind Nuss than maybe would have been ideal.
And
they were able to bring in
no one's over a sophomore, so.
They were able to bring in Michael Van Buren, who was thrown in Mississippi State a little bit earlier than he was anticipated to because of a season-ending injury this past fall to Blake Shapen. And so there's a little bit of experience there, and SEC experience, but this is not a team that, is anticipating or hoping or whatnot to be going into the season with Michael Van Buren as your starter. It's all built around Nuss. And I said on Fox 8's Final Bet this week, there's a lot of, as this offensive line comes together and as this offensive line goes and as Nuss goes behind them is to me kind of the barometer of how this season will go. And so there are spotlights from every which way on a national scale around Nussmeier for obvious reasons. And that's part of why a rumor quickly spirals into a national story on Wednesday.
Yeah. It felt like telephone, like a big old game of telephone. One of my favorite things that if you saw the BK, the presser, obviously, that you sent to me, but for anyone watching, Nick and chat, one reporter asked Brian Kelly something, and he said, "Did I not make this clear?" And the reporter's response is I don't know who it was, but it was one of my favorites. He goes, "Oh no, I'm just not that smart." And I was like, I felt that so hard in my bones. So shout out to whoever that is.
Yeah, and I mean, the knee, this is a drastic oversimplification, obviously, but the knee has hella parts to it. And so there are a lot of, when you hear about an athlete going through a knee injury, there are so many pieces to that. And you hear about all of these different ligaments and the meniscus itself and everything. And so there's a lot to unpack. And then the different grades of strains and tears, and I mean, with Nuss, the talk of it being tendonitis and whatnot, but all of that was certainly really, really interesting. And it's we kind of joke about the game of telephone and how quickly things can spiral. I think for me, from my side of things, I'm consistently frustrated with just the internet age and the way that information spirals, because I don't know if somebody who, a fan at LSU, who maybe it's someone who had a chance to be at practice or heard from someone they knew who had been to practice or whatever, and just heard it was a knee, and it becomes a speculation of, oh man, it looked like it could be an ACL, and then that starts to extend and becomes it is an ACL and whatnot. But there's also the point where we're at now, where because of engagement, people will just throw false stuff out there to try and get engagement, and the discernment level of fans, and this is not an LSU thing, and it's not a sports thing, the discernment level of internet users is so weak in some cases that things will spiral just because you're taking completely unsubstantiated posts, people that you don't know who the hell they are, and just running with it and spiraling it. And it's really weird where we're at right now. Again, there's something there. There's more to this than just something being completely made up, but there's all these different levels to the chaos that comes out whenever, news gets reported or misreported at this point.
So take a deep breath. That's what we're saying. I'm looking right into the camera when I say this. It's going to be okay. It looks like it looks like like Brian Kelly said, with tendonitis, with patella tendonitis or any tendonitis, it can get aggravated. The LSU staff is not, they've dealt with this kind of stuff. The medical staff has dealt with this kind of stuff before. LSU has a great medical team. Let them do their work. And I, like you said, when you said that he was, already kind of back doing things in practice, not just a full holdout, like that even gives me hope. I think you obviously, after something like this happens, you want to kind of push the brakes a little bit on having him fully in practice and things like that. But the fact that he is still doing stuff, that he's not completely held out of practice, it was just limited, I think is a good sign.
And again, we're recording this within the first 48 hours of all of this happening. And so, I mean, you and I and lots of people out there have dealt with our own brands of serious injuries, obviously under a much smaller, under a much smaller spotlight. But for me, I mean, they couldn't even fully diagnose the extent of the break and like when I would be able to get in for surgery and different stuff like that until some of the swelling had gone down and whatnot. And my swelling was lingering way longer. And so like the fact that we're still early in this, you're looking at stuff that is still kind of being diagnosed. Like there's the potential of a second opinion. There's conversations with families and whatnot. And by the time they're really kind of winding down the end of practice and stuff on Wednesday, all of this is already wildfire around the nation. And so there's so much that was happening before everything was really being settled, and any injury is also, from individual to individual. As much as we look at and say, if it's this, it's potentially a 6-week timetable and whatnot, everyone varies in their recovery timelines. And so you have to kind of watch and monitor and be cautious, watch, wait how things develop. And you kind of made the point to shout out some of what LSU has at its disposal there. They have enough going on in terms of medical support and recovery resources and whatnot that teenagers on the recruiting trail mention how blown away they are on visits to see some of what LSU offers in that regard in terms of taking care of its athletes. And so all of that is now at Nuss's disposal, dealing with, whatever the extent of what is going on with his knee now, with, again, 3 weeks until that Clemson opener. This is probably one of those seasons as this week has gone, you wish you were opening with Southeastern or somebody and not Clemson, who has one of the best defensive lines in the country, and then 2 weeks later Florida as your third opponent of the season.
Don't even get me started on that. Consistently just scheduling a juggernaut game at the beginning of the season is not, in a college football atmosphere that has no preseason at all, no ability to tune up, is, I think, one of the stupidest effing things ever. I don't want to edit out a curse word, so I didn't say it.
And obviously you don't go into the season planning on, our quarterback might be injured week 1, so we need to not schedule anybody tough. But
still, like scheduling someone like Clemson first, there's no room. I mean, both teams are obviously probably going to be getting off some rust in those first couple quarters, the first couple drives, all that kind of stuff. But I'd rather do that against an FCS opponent, someone that's getting paid a big paycheck just to be there and get whooped on. Like, that's what, and then do Clemson week 2. All right. But anyway, I digress. That's not what we're here to talk about. We will keep you updated, obviously, with anything that is happening with the Nussmeier knee, and obviously all of LSU football. I'm going to say obviously one more time because you got to do it in 3s or 5s. So stay tuned into PODnas.
We'll keep you up on all the ACLs, MCLs,
PCLs, patellas, kneecaps. Yeah. Lateral release surgeries, all that kind of stuff. But that's all we got for you today. We'll be back with you next week. We're going to have previews of LSU, maybe do a little Tulane ULL in there as well. And then we'll have another episode just to go over the tragedy of the New Orleans Saints as we see it this upcoming season. That'll all be next week. So please tune in. Follow us on YouTube. The YouTube channel is Louisiana versus All Y'all. You can go on Twitter or Instagram at LA versus All Y'all. Follow Jared over there. Sorry, had a big swallow. And then yeah, I know that wasn't great phrasing. We'll just, and then follow PODnas on Instagram, PODnas_LA. That's all we got for you today. PODnas.